Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide. A reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know the remote location of Pearl Harbor was chosen by American military leaders to store 8 valuable battleships because Pearl Harbor was 2,000 miles from the United States and about 4,000 miles from Japan? Follow us through 2 hours of harrowing surprise events that led the United States to enter World War II.
Today we are taking on a really crucial date in American history, December 7th, 1941.
Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. It's one of those moments that just changes everything that comes after.
It really is. We've pulled together a lot of source material to walk through the attack, the immediate aftermath, and what's really fascinating, the huge strategic mistakes the attackers made.
Right.
So to really get this, you have to picture it. It's a Sunday morning, quiet. We're at a huge U.S. naval base in Hawaii.
And it feels completely safe. I mean, you're talking about a place that's 2,000 miles from the U.S. mainland.
And 4,000 miles from Japan. It felt untouchable.
And that's the absolute key to all of this, that sense of security. Japan was, of course, part of the Axis powers with Nazi Germany. Tensions were high, no doubt. But the American military leadership, they had this fundamental belief, this assumption that a major attack on Hawaii was, well, basically impossible. The distance was too great.
So they were completely unprepared for what was about to happen.
Tragically so.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack these sources to understand the sheer scale of that attack, how the nation responded almost overnight, and, I think most importantly, why the attack ultimately failed in its main goal. Okay, let's unpack this.
So we have to start with the attack itself. The timing, the speed of it, it's just staggering.
Yeah, it's just before 8 a.m., a Sunday, and the sky just fills with Japanese fighter planes.
Hundreds of them. And they came in 2 waves, and the sources are clear. They went right for the ships moored at the docks.
Which made them, what, sitting ducks, basically?
Completely stationary targets, and the violence against those big battleships was just immediate. You have to look at the USS Arizona. It was hit only 10 minutes into the attack.
By an 1,800-pound bomb.
An armor-piercing one, yeah. It went straight through the forward deck.
And the result was just instantaneous.
It was. The sources described this massive internal explosion. The ship was ripped apart from the inside and sank right there.
And trapped over 1,000 men inside.
Over 1,000 men. And the hull of the Arizona, it was never raised. It's still there in the harbor today. A memorial. That one moment really set the tone for the entire morning.
That one loss alone is just horrifying. But it wasn't just the Arizona.
Oh, not at all. You look at the USS Oklahoma, it was hit by multiple torpedoes, one after another.
And what happened to it?
The force of the hits it rolled the entire ship onto its side. It capsized, trapping another 400 sailors underwater.
So for hundreds of men, that was it. The ship sinking was their grave.
Exactly. It just shows how devastatingly effective that first wave was.
And the speed here is what gets me. The sources say this whole thing, the 2 waves, the sinking ships, all of it, was over in less than 2 hours.
An absolute blitz. And in that short window, all 8 U.S. battleships in the harbor were either completely destroyed or very, very heavily damaged.
Which brings us to the human cost.
Yeah.
When you add it all up from the materials we have, the number of U.S. personnel killed is 2,403.
And you can't forget the civilians. 68 civilians were also killed, just caught in chaos.
And the material losses, I mean, nearly 20 American ships, those 8 battleships, and over 300 airplanes just gone.
Wiped out on the ground before they could even take off.
And then you contrast that with Japan's losses.
Yeah.
It's stark. The sources say they lost only 64 soldiers.
And only 1 was captured. From a purely tactical perspective, it was a stunning success. But it left the whole world, and especially the U.S., asking, what happens now?
Right. What do you do the day after something like that?
Well, that takes us straight to Washington, D.C. The nation was just reeling.
Exactly. So the very next day, Monday, December 8th, President Franklin D. Roosevelt stands before Congress, and he has one and only one purpose.
To ask for declaration of war.
Yeah.
And that speech he gives, it becomes one of the most famous in history. The language is so powerful. He starts with, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
That phrase, a date which will live in infamy. It's more than just a description, isn't it? It's a rallying cry.
It completely reframes the event. It's not a military defeat anymore. It's an act of betrayal. And he ends with this incredible resolve, saying the American people will win through to absolute victory, and that they'll make sure this form of treachery shall never endanger us again.
The debate was over.
Completely. Congress approved the declaration of war almost immediately. So on December 8th, the U.S. is officially in World War II.
And you have to remember, the war had already been going for more than 2 years at this point. The U.S. had stayed out of it.
And suddenly, the war becomes global for America. Just 3 days later, Japan's allies, Germany and Italy, they declare war on the United States.
Think about that timeline. It's breathtaking. In just 4 days, the U.S. goes from neutrality to being at war with 3 major world powers on 2 separate fronts.
The attack did something Japan never intended.
It unified the country.
Instantly, all the debate about isolationism just vanished.
Okay, so let's shift here, because this is where it gets really interesting. Despite all that devastation, all that loss, the attack was, in the long run, a strategic failure for Japan.
That's absolutely the key takeaway when you analyze the operation. They sank the battleships, yes, but they did not achieve their main goal, which was to permanently cripple the U.S. Pacific Fleet.
So why not? I mean, how do you sink 8 battleships and not cripple a fleet?
It came down to a fundamental misunderstanding of modern naval warfare. By the 1940s, the most important ship in a navy wasn't the battleship anymore, it was the aircraft carrier.
The floating air base?
Exactly. The sources are clear. Carriers were seen as more effective than battleships. They were the future, but the Japanese attack focused on the past, on the battleships.
So they missed the most important targets. And this is where, as you said earlier, luck comes into play.
A huge amount of luck. It just so happened that the U.S. aircraft carriers weren't in Pearl Harbor that day.
They were out at sea.
Yeah, they were on missions, delivering planes to troops on Midway and Wake Islands, so they were completely untouched. The Navy's ability to strike back from long range was preserved.
That is just incredible. So that's the first big strategic miss. Was the second?
The second miss is maybe even more important for the recovery. They completely failed to attack the onshore infrastructure.
So not the ships, but the things that keep the ships running.
Precisely.
Right.
We're talking about huge, colossal oil storage depots, all the fuel for the fleet. They were untouched.
And what was that so critical?
If they had destroyed that oil, the rest of the U.S. fleet, even the ships that survived, would have had to retreat all the way back to the West Coast just to refuel.
Wow. It would have taken them out of the fight for months.
For many months, yes. And it wasn't just the oil. The repair shops, the shipyards, the submarine docks, all of it was left mostly intact.
So the U.S. still had its main weapon, the carriers, and it still had the ability to repair, refuel, and rearm the rest of the fleet right there in Hawaii.
That's the bottom line. The attack, while horrific, left the U.S. Navy with its core striking power and the ability to get back on its feet incredibly quickly, much faster than Japan ever thought possible.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the attack that was meant to knock the U.S. out of the war actually became the very thing that guaranteed its full immediate entry.
It was a tactical victory that led directly to a strategic catastrophe for Japan. It didn't cripple America, it woke it up and handed it the tools to fight back.
So what does this all mean? When you step back, you see the terrible cost, 2,403 lives, those iconic battleships at the bottom of the harbor.
An unbelievable tragedy.
But you also see that the survival of the carriers and that onshore infrastructure meant Japan's surprise attack essentially backfired. It turned into a self-inflicted wound.
It really did. And it highlights that core lesson from the sources. A failure of imagination, of preparedness, led to the disaster. But the attacker's own failure to follow through, to hit the truly strategic targets, is what ultimately sealed their fate.
It really makes you think about the incredible speed of it all. A 2-hour attack changes America's fate. But then, just 3 days later, with Germany and Italy declaring war, the entire scope of the conflict changes again for every single American. It just shows you how quickly global events can escalate and how being prepared is about so much more than just what you expect to happen.
Thank you for joining us for this day in his story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in his story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.